For a great cup of joe, there's one thing you should know. Your morning brew can also be playful. Buff Boy Brewing guys make the temperature rise, and you surely feel naughty when you swallow our coffee. If you want some real heat, give your mouth a fine treat. You will want some more, rest assured. Buff Boy Brewing, you can't get enough of.
It's time for The Scribble, your weekly fix of celebrity chats, bizarre stories in the news, and basic random chatter with best-selling author and syndicated radio host Jeremy Bradley. Make sure your seat is in the upright and locked position and your barf bag is securely in place. Here's Jeremy Bradley.
Thank you very much, Larson. Jeremy Bradley here. This is The Scribble. You know, there's that old saying, mother knows best. Does she really, though? That's the question. And is it a generational question? I mean, I'm in my 40s. If I were to ask somebody who's a teenager, maybe in their early 20s, does your mother know best? First of all, how many of them call their mom mother, really? I've never referred to my mom as mother. I don't know, I just never. Well, I guess if I'm pissed off at her. Just like when she refers to me as, you know, like by my full name, I'll say, you know, my mother if I'm pissed off at her. But anyway, that's what we're talking about today. I've had some conversations with some colleagues and some friends, and we were talking about our childhoods and just kind of like, what are some of the things that, you know, like your parents did, and you maybe thought they were right at the time, but then as you got older, you were sort of just maybe second guessing things or taking a look at it a different way. That's what we're talking about on The Scribble right after this.
Isn't it crazy that you wait for payday, but before you know it, you're strapped for cash again? It's time to stop blowing your money and become a smart spender with the book, The Official Guide to Being an American Cheapskate at cheapskatebook.com. Learn simple ways to cut costs at home every day and during special times of the year. Don't go broke at Christmas. Don't remortgage the house for a fancy vacation. The book is filled with tips to save you money throughout the year. Check out the best-selling book, The Official Guide to Being an American Cheapskate at cheapskatebook.com or on Amazon and iTunes.
Ever had something to get off your chest but never had the balls to say it? That's a load of crap. Speak Free with JB.com is exactly what you've been waiting for. Your chance to tell it like it is and not care what anybody else thinks. Have your say on issues of the day. Join newspaper and radio columnist Jeremy Bradley as he tells it like it is. Hundreds of thousands of people have stopped by, including some well-known celebrities who have had a chat with JB and speak candidly about what's really going on in the world. You can join them too. Have a rant or a rave. Be brave and head on over to www.speakfreewithjb.com now.
JB here on The Scribble. You know, one of the things that we often associate with our moms, and this isn't me being sexist, so don't even start, right? But one of the things that most of us associate with our moms is cooking, right? I mean, that's just, our family, is Polish, Ukrainian, it was just, that's the way, well, it still is. That's just the way it is for family gatherings, for holidays, whatever it is, the men don't cook. Yes, if it's something in the summer and somebody's got to man the barbecue, okay, right? So it might sound sexist, but if that's the way that you're raised and the way the family dynamic works, then who are we to say, right? And we'll get on the mom thing in a second. Let me just talk about my grandma, or my grandparents. They're both dead now, but they were married for almost 60 years. And, they had their relationship set up. Obviously, after 60-some years, they have a routine. They have, she does this, he does that. And so I remember saying to a colleague, we're going back, 20-some years, that my grandma would cook everything. My grandpa had never cooked, but he would never let her wash the dishes. He would physically, grab her by the shoulders and, pull her away from the sink and sit her down or just move her away. When we would have family get-togethers, he would never let her wash the dishes. That was his thing. And so then also to outside where he would cut the grass and she would move. They had a shit ton of lawn ornaments. I mean, their yard, they had a big, that was her role, was to go and move them. He would go with the lawnmower down the strip or down the row or whatever. And then she would move them to the next spot. And then he would come down again. And then he would have a bath. My grandpa was, he had throat cancer, so he had like the hole in his neck. You've seen people, talk with that machine or whatever that they put to their neck, to their throat. And so he couldn't have showers. He had to have a bath. And so he would be having a bath. My grandma would then go and either wash or iron his clothes. And they, by the way, in their basement still had one of those like hand washer kind of things. They didn't even have one that you just press the buttons and do it. It was old school, even till the end. Yeah. And so she would go and prepare his clothes and then fold them and then put them on the lid or on like the seat of the toilet, like the toilet seat is down, and she would put that for him while he was bathing. And so they just had their routines. And so I mentioned this, I've told this to a bunch of people, but I had a former coworker, she's a feminist, and she just, that is so sexist that, that my grandma, now I'm going to use the word had to cook for him, but you know what I mean after I've just set up the story though, right? I mean, it was just... And you have to remember, we're going back to the when did they got married when they met when she was 15, he was 16, and then they married when she was 16. So, we're talking about the 1940s, I guess it was. And so, yes, women had a role. Men had a role. That's just the way it was, folks. That's, you don't yell at me for that. That's the way the world was. That's just the way it was. And for them, in that time or in that generation or culture, whatever it was, it worked for them. And they stuck with that their entire married life. So this is my thing is, everybody's always kind of chiming in on relationships and shit like that. And it's like, it works for them. You know what? As far as we know, as a family, they didn't have any major blowouts. There was no fights. There was no drama. It was love. They still held hands. She would sit on his lap at the kitchen table when company would come over, like, at a holiday or whatever. And he would be sitting on the chair in the kitchen. She would be sitting on his knee, or on the couch in the living room. She'd be sitting on his knee. So, it's like, who's to say if it works for them, whatever. If that was the role that she was subservient or whatever, who cares? It's not like he was slapping her around and punching her. I mean, it was, it was a happy marriage until my parents don't even hold hands, and they've been married for 50 years. They weren't even holding hands at 40 years or 30 years or 25 years. I don't even know that I've ever seen my parents hold hands. So the fact that my grandparents did it, 60 years into their marriage, that's fucking amazing. Sorry, Baba and Gija. That's what we call them in Ukrainian. Sorry for using that language, but your relationship was fucking amazing. And let me applaud you right now. That was So anyway, all right. Enough of that. So let's get to moms, because now let's go down a generation then to moms. And so, when you're a kid, you do sort of feel like your parents know everything, because why would they lie to you? Why would they mislead you, right? Why would they set you on the wrong path? Why would they? And then as you get older and you start to experience life, and you kind of meet new people, or you try different things, you're like, wait a second, that's not what my mom said. And then you piece things together. Sometimes you might confront her later about that, right? And just kind of question as to like, well, why did you, but I heard that but what if, but I don't think. So one of the big things, going back to the cooking thing, so now I'm going to circle back, is called the weave, as Trump would say. So, cooking was obviously my mom's thing. My dad doesn't really. So when you're a kid and the food is made for you, everything tastes good, really, in a sense, because you're not exposed to other people's cooking very much, right? So if your mom makes a pizza or a salad, well, that's because that's the first time you've had it, right? Or maybe the first place you've tried it, that's going to be your immediate thought, is because it was good. So I always remember my mom making pizza dough. She would, I don't know how to make dough, so I don't know exactly what she did, but I remember there was always like a plastic bag that was sort of puffed up that she would put in the front windowsill in the sun or something like that. Like, she would make pizza dough like that. And it was very good. And then anytime she would buy, later on, she would buy those, like pita shells or naan bread, or just, different kinds of not actual dough. Excuse me. It just wasn't the same. Right. And so then, even when I would make pizza at home, it just wasn't the same. But when I was getting a little bit older and I started to cook for myself, so chicken is my favorite food. I grilled chicken. I'm not big into breaded. I don't really care for, chicken fingers and stuff like that. So give me a grilled chicken sandwich. like a grilled like off the grill, but not. Yeah, I can't do the like breaded and deep fried and all that crap. It's just that's not me. So anyway, my mom would make chicken, and again, because this is when you're younger, this is really the only place you have it. I mean, because when you were going to a restaurant as a kid, I mean, you weren't ordering chicken breasts or whatever, right? You were maybe having chicken fingers or fries or whatever, or a little pizza or something, but you weren't getting right? Because that was the grown-up menu. You weren't having that. So because I love chicken, my mom would make chicken all the time. And I didn't realize that chicken doesn't have to be hard as a rock, that you basically have to saw it with your knife. So now, fast forward to when I was in my mid or late teens. No, maybe was I early 20s already? I don't know. Either way. But you get to that age where you kind of want to start to make your own food. Yeah, you're a lazy teenage boy. You go downstairs to your room in the basement. You wait for mom to call you that supper's ready. Then you go upstairs, you grab your plate, then you come back down, right? There's very little interaction. You might grunt as you walk by. So I would start to make... I love Caesar salad as well, so I would make a Caesar salad. I might get a chicken breast and kind of chop that up. So you have to kind of learn, right, how you cook. Now, remember, this is before the days of social media, internet, and recipes and all that, easy access to everything online. That wasn't a thing back then. So I would get, obviously, when you buy a package of, chicken breasts or whatever, it's got the cooking instructions. It will tell you the temperature and for how long, right? So I'm doing that in the kitchen one day, right? I'm looking at the package and it says to put it on like 420 or I can't, just go with me, right? So it says, 420 for 30 minutes. So my mom comes in and she's like, do it a little bit, do it to like, 430 or 435, not 425. Her theory is that the oven isn't exactly 425 when it says 425. So, okay, fine. So you put up, 5 or maybe 10 more degrees. And then the 30-minute thing, she's like, do it for about 35. Remember, and it even says it on the package, that cooking times may vary, right? You've seen that with it. Different, basically, appliances can have different, speeds, temperatures, or just efficiency, I guess would be the term. So, but it always does tell you to check the internal temperature, right? So no matter what it says on the actual package for the instructions, it still always tells you to cook it until the temperature is whatever, right? So if it's ready at 25 minutes, great, it's ready at 25 minutes, right? You keep an eye on it. You kind of make sure. So my mom's cooking instructions for me to do chicken was to over temperature, is that the word? Over temperature, whatever, and then over time it. So not exactly nuke it, but still just, but again, mother knows best, right? She knows that the oven or whatever isn't going to be, or the toaster oven, or however I did it. And then, that extra time. So then, when you're now old enough to kind of like, I'm going to make this when she's not here, right? Because I can use the stove or the oven by myself. I'm a big boy now. So when you do it to the actual temperature, well, sure as shit, it's easier to cut now. Oh, it's kind of soft. It's a little tender now. It's a bit more juicy now. And so now it's like, I enjoy chicken more. I enjoy it more now because, right? So again, does mother know best? Not necessarily. Yeah. And there were a couple other things too. So, but that's one example where I was just kind of like, what, so I would always joke that it's her moist-free chicken or her desert-style chicken. And yeah, I just, and it's funny too, because you can, it depends obviously, like if you're cooking it from frozen or if it's raw, right? One of the things that she would do to marinate it, because she would just put the chicken breast, maybe do, some salt and pepper or something, but she didn't marinate it ever. So then when I started to, like read instructions or whatever on the packaging, it says, oh, like how sometimes on the packaging, it'll have an upsell for another brand of a product, right? So maybe it might be, like if you're buying a salad dressing, it might tell you to get a certain kind of crouton or a certain kind of bacon or, like it'll have that kind of cross sell. And so that's where I was discovering marinade. I thought, okay, so then it starts to say like, marinate it for 30 minutes or 60 minutes or even overnight. So when I then got a job at Red Lobster, I was 16. I was when I was 16 and 17 is when I worked at Red Lobster. So then I come in and I see them in the back of the kitchen. They're prepping chicken. They're painting it with Italian dressing, and they've got it, thawing or whatever it is, and they're marinating it all fucking day. So that's where I learned that, okay, wait a second. So you don't just cook it from frozen. So my mom would get marinade after I kind of explained this to her, and she would pour the marinade on it onto a frozen chicken breast, let it sit on it for maybe 10 minutes. It's still frozen. It's not seeping in. It's not absorbing. It's not going into the chicken breast at all. It's just sitting on top. So that's how she would marinate something. So what I started to do, now we're going into my, 18, 19 years old, and I'm a little bit more, because once you've worked in a restaurant, and we're not talking like fast food, Red Lobster, we had most of it was prepared fresh. So once I've been exposed to that and I see it and I've kind of learned a little bit, I'm going to try these things at home now, right? So I would get chicken breasts, and then I would get a little, those plastic, like a Ziploc, kind of like a seal container or whatever, So I would get the fresh chicken breast. I would stab it with a knife a bunch of times to make holes in it. I would pour, like a garlic marinade or something. Sometimes I would even chop up garlic and kind of stuff it in there, seal it, put it in the fridge, let it marinate even overnight. I was making the juiciest fucking chicken in the world. So you go back to 5 years earlier where, oh, my mom makes great chicken, whatever. And then you're kind of like, no, her chicken actually sucks. Now, let me also just remind she meant well. It's not like she was intending for it to be bad. But I mean, if she's never really cooked chicken for kids or for herself or whatever before, then maybe she doesn't know. So that's where you kind of go back to that and go, wow, she was putting, frozen chicken breast, dumping a little bit, like a spoonful of marinade onto, I'm pouring almost like the entire bottle of marinade into, I was doing almost like a half bottle of marinade. It's literally underneath the marinade. Like it's sunk, it's like swimming. It's underneath that's how much marinade I've got in the container. And yeah, the flavor, it was just amazing. And then when I'm cooking, like in my parents' house, the kitchen, is just smelling like it's garlic and it's seasoned. It's making people hungry. And I'm sitting there going, has her chicken ever done that? I don't even know that it's even put out a smell that, let alone wafted through the house. So there's that when you kind of, you start to go, maybe she wasn't the best cook. Maybe there's other things. And then one of the other things that I do remember is her making cookies. That her Christmas shortbreads were always my favorite. That was something where she would make them, and then so some of them would remain up. The cookies would remain upstairs in a little tin or like a container up in a cupboard, and then she would have other, like those big gallon ice cream pails. She would put cookies in that and then put them in the freezer, and so save them for closer to Christmas or and then when it was an event, she would pull them out, thaw them or whatever, and then serve them. So, of course, being the kid, you always think that you're being sneaky, right? The ice cream pail is literally full, and then it's just gradually going down row by row, right? But nobody's going to notice. It's like when you take your parents' booze. Maybe they don't realize that you've had the vodka and you've added water to it, and they don't realize that, like, close to the end of the bottle, it's mostly water and no longer vodka. This sort of a thing. But, I mean, obviously, cookies, you're kind of like, well, and then you reposition them, you maybe stack them a little bit differently so it looks like it's still, that, you're going to open it and go, I think there's some cookies missing here. So the shortbread ones I always liked at Christmas. That was always my favorite because it was the shapes of like trees or bells or whatever. Now, my mom was always very chintzy with the decorations on them, or like the sprinkles or the little balls or whatever. So that's something that we would laugh about because you go to a store and you see the icing like full on or just completely covered in sprinkles. My mom would do like a pinch, literally a pinch of sprinkles. So again, you think that's fine and dandy because you don't know any different, and then you go to a store or a party or whatever it is, and you're like, wow, that's a lot of sprinkles. Then you realize how cheap your mom was. And same thing with chocolate chip cookies. I'm not shitting you. So what she would do is she would make the cookies, like ball them or whatever, put them on the pan or on the tray or the pan, whatever it was. She would then put the chocolate chips, 2 of them on the top, or 1 right in the middle. So when I say it was a chocolate chip cookie, literally 1, a chocolate chip cookie, 1. Or if you were lucky, you got one that had 2. Kind of like almost like eyes. Or like maybe a bowling ball has 3 holes in it. I was going to say, or like, So that's what a chocolate chip cookie was in our house. 2 chocolate chips. Literally 2, or, like I said, 1. It wasn't until we went to a family gathering and my aunt's mom, we always called them her world famous cookies. She used like those chocolate chunks and, whatever. Everybody loved those cookies. Tender, moist. They were, a decent size. They were really big. Everybody loved her cookies. That was what you would kind of wait for after the meal. And then I flash back to my mom's and go, they were always kind of like really hard. They were never really sort of chewy and tender or whatever. And then you had 2 chocolate chips. So this is again funny. When I was out at the lake, again, about 17, 18 years old, one of my friends, she's a few years older than me, she was getting into cooking, whatever, because she was becoming a woman and she was, getting ready to almost move out on her own pretty soon. And she was getting into recipes and she started to make, she was baking cookies one summer. And so she did the chocolate chips. And I just remember saying to her, I'm like, these are amazing. Do you have the recipe? So she gave me the recipe. Then when I come home to the city, get home, I asked my mom which of these ingredients we have, and then if we don't have them, I just went and bought some other stuff. And I went and I followed the recipe exactly, did not overcook them, temperature or time. I did exactly what my friend gave me. And I did as many chocolate chips, right? Because it's almost like a rebellion thing now, right? I'm going to put as many, because I can. They're my cookies. I'm not going to be cheap with the chocolate chips. You go to school and people are like, that's a chocolate chip cookie. It's got 1 fucking chocolate chip on it, you loser. Well, I don't ration them. I was the kid. And so I started to make them and I was just like, yeah, I haven't lived until now I'm alive. Now I'm living. So again, the mom means well, right? In my case, it was the mom. Sometimes it's a dad. That's fine too. But I'm always just like, the recipe, no, it's just different. Now, we're going to shift gears, still talking about moms, though, about gift buying. Did your mom kind of know you well enough and get it right all the time, or did she kind of just miss the mark every time? I'll talk about that on the Scribble right after this.
Who are the Kardashians feuding with now? What did that little thug Justin Bieber do this time? Who's getting hitched? And who's headed for Splitsville? Hear the latest celebrity news and gossip every day on Entertainment Wrap-Up. The good, the bad, the ugly, but mostly the ridiculously hilarious. It's all recapped in this daily segment at entertainmentwrapup.com. Have a laugh at the expense of the rich and famous when they take themselves way too seriously. It's 3 minutes of time-wasting fun at entertainmentwrapup.com. Check out Entertainment Wrap-Up at entertainmentwrapup.com. Brought to you by Speak Free Books.
We hear you chirping. Get scribbling. Tweet up the Scribble at The Scribble Show. Join the discussion with Jeremy Bradley. It's all going down right now on Twitter at The Scribble Show and at thescribbleshow.com.
JB here on The Scribble on our, I was going to say, I don't know, is it a sarcastic salute to moms today? I don't even really know how to classify this, but I was talking about cooking in the last segment, and now let's go into gift giving, because again, when you're a kid and Christmas is rolling around or the holidays are rolling around, you make your wish list of what you want. My mom worked at Sears for quite a long time, so we always had the Sears catalog, and you go through and naturally you have a list of 20 things that you want, and you're lucky if you get a bunch of them, and you don't realize that well, back then things weren't as expensive, but I mean, you just didn't kind of get that and go, you, at no time did you think, okay, wait a second, my mom is not only buying for me, my 2 brothers, my grandparents, my nephews, my whoever, right? You don't think that in the time. You just go and say, well, why don't I get this many presents? It's like, well, because I only have so much income and, there's so many people. It certainly wouldn't stretch, the money wouldn't stretch that far today, obviously, but, so again, once you get older, and then you kind of realize and go, oh, that's why I couldn't have all 25 things on my list. So you're appreciative of the ones that you get. Now, I guess what my mom would do, though, is, let's say that you had, I always really wanted the Disney watches. So, and again, I'm talking to people of a certain age, where the Mickey Mouse watch, the hands or his arms would be the hands of the watch, right? So it would kind of, turn, he would literally be pointing to the time. And so it wasn't a digital watch, right? It was one with the hands. So I always wanted those ones, because it had maybe like the gold around it or whatever. It wasn't real gold, and I don't know how much they were. Let's say it was, $40, $50 or something like that. Well, as a kid, it's like, well, is a parent going to buy, that's expensive for a watch for a kid, right? So I never got those, but she would kind of figure out an alternative then, right? So let's say I really liked lava lamps as well. I was always kind of big into lights for some reason. So when Radio Shack was around, again, to people of my age, they used to have like an odd sort of like a party light or like a disco light or a flashing or like a spinning thing that had different colors. I always loved those. Those were always my thing. But then I discovered lava lamps. I was born in 1982, so I'm not from the original lava lamp era. I'm from when it kind of came back to Spencer's Gifts, right? That was when it was big. So I bought one lava lamp. Green was always my favorite color, so I bought one that had the water wasn't colored, so the water was clear. Sometimes you can get it with like blue water, whatever. I never liked those ones. I always liked the clear water, and then the green lava, however you say it. And so I had one, and then they were, I don't remember if they were either on sale or what, but then I ended up acquiring maybe two others. And so my room, again, was kind of, I didn't have the actual light with the light switch. I didn't have the actual room light on. I would just have my lava lamps. And it was just sort of a nice dim, right? Because it's sort of a darker room. And that was just nice. It was relaxing. It was kind of, not super bright. And so I really liked lava lamps. And so and so she knew that I liked those kinds of things. And then I wanted one that was it was called a plasma lamp. And it looked like electricity. It almost looked like so it kind of had it was like blue and then had like a swirl sort of a design to it. And again, it was from Spencer's or one of those types of novelty stores. So that was on my list. And then there was another kind of light. So at Christmas now, it's Christmas Day, right? And well, even before that, once the presents are wrapped under the tree, you were snooping, right? And maybe sometimes you'd even tear it just by accident, just to see, right? And you'd blame the dog's nails or something because it's like, oh well, it was underneath the tree, but it moved and he scratched it or whatever. But I always liked ruining the surprise for myself. I don't know why. I was that kid. I was that kid that would snoop for the presents and then would maybe try to somehow tear it and then flip it over so that it wouldn't be seen. So there was one that particular year when I was into those lights, that one of the wrapped boxes was about the size of the lava or plasma lamp or light that I had wanted. So I'm getting my hopes up. I'm like, yeah, this is great, awesome. I got it. Yeah, it's blue because I pointed out or it was on my list or whatever I did. So again, I'm going back to that swing and a miss thing, right? So we're going around the room. For many years, we had to open one at a time, right? So we all sat in the same spot. My mom would start, and we'd go around the room clockwise. Then it would be my dad. I was on the couch, my brother beside me, and then my other brother across the room. And so we'd have to go one by one, and then eventually we all just kind of did it, and it was over really fast. So I go and I open this one, and my mom's watching me. I remember her looking and seeing her watching me. So I go and I open it. And I pull it out, and it's a lamp, it's a light. And so I go and I pull it out or I unwrap it, and it's one of those that has it's a lit up scene in the middle, and the scene turns around, and there's kind of like glitter and stuff that goes around it. Well, it was like dolphins. It was like an underwater sort of scene. So when you plugged it in, the giant image turned around within the water, and then there was there was glitter that sort of swam around, and so I got this it was like an under the sea underwater dolphin aquatic kind of thing. Now, as a kid, were you able to fake it? Were you able to pretend that you liked it, right? You think that you're fooling your parents when you go and say like, oh no, I like it, and then later she comes over and she's like, we can exchange it. I can take it back. Right? It's fine. We can take it back. Because she can read you. A mom knows. That's the one thing. When you've spent so many years with your kid, you figure out when when they're lying. But as the kid, you don't want to hurt the feelings, right? I don't know that I ever had a freak out and go, why did you get me this? Like, I've seen those videos of the kids and you just want to fucking punch them in the face, you ungrateful bastard, right? So I never did that. I never had a freak out of like, I didn't want this one. Why did you get me this one? Yeah, no, we never. We were appreciative that we got anything. So again, our generation was the one that respected the parents and did not, we weren't the generation like today's that need a fucking backhand or a fucking uppercut to the chin. Because I've heard the way kids talk to parents now, and I just sit there and go, this is why I hate kids. I would never be spoken to like that. Ever. No, it just wouldn't, there would be a problem. There would be, no. Nope. So yeah, we never had, the big dramatic meltdown because it wasn't the one that I wanted or whatever, but she was always kind of like, well, we can take it back. And I don't even know that I know that I bought the plasma lamp on my own. I don't know if she just returned it for the money. I don't recall whatever happened with that. And then, one of the other times, speaking of times, we're out of time. They're just telling me to wrap up. I'm going to do one more because I'm on the subject of gifts. I had got a hamster. And that Christmas, I guess, so my mom had told like my aunts and uncles and my grandparents, whatever, that I had got a hamster. So, when you go, we do our thing at the family, in our immediate family first, and then we go to my grandparents' house, and then that's where you have the big extended family one, right? The Christmas gathering. So, of course, you go and you look and see like, oh, there's one from, Uncle Jim, and then there's one from Uncle John, and there's one from, So, we go, we have the dinner or whatever, and then we go into the living room, and then it's time for presents. And as a kid, you're like, is it going to be toys? You always hated the clothes. That was not something that you wanted. So I go and I'm opening them. Every gift that I had was an accessory either for the hamster cage, or it was, treats for the hamster or food for the hamster. I remember, and there's a picture of me that my parents have. I don't remember did my mom give it to me or did I just recently see it? But either way, I can tell the look on my face is just, this is a fake smile. This is a kid that's not happy. And I still, even if I didn't have the picture in front of me, I still remember the feeling of that day. So again, ungrateful maybe in your mind, or I guess maybe, not ungrateful, disappointed, right? I don't know that I was necessarily expecting specific toys or something, right? But I remember feeling all the Christmas gifts are for my hamster. That was how I viewed it. I didn't see it as, well, these are for me because now, if you remember years ago, I don't know if they still have this kind of a thing. I don't have a hamster, but they had those cages that had those tubes and like some of them curved up. So you could basically make your cage have different levels and different, it was almost like a mall. It was almost like a condo, like, so it would run through the tube and it would go to the next part. And then there was another tube and it would go up or it would climb or whatever. So that's what they ended up getting me. So I had the regular kind of base hamster cage. And then that's the one that had like the hole in the sides. You would connect the tube or the tunnel or whatever you want to call it. And then it would swirl. And so that's what they ended up doing, was they all ended up buying me different accessories. So I would open up like 3 of these plastic tubes for a hamster cage. And again, I was like, oh, wow. I didn't see it for the big picture of, hey, wait a second, this is your pet and this is kind of, it's going to be cool and you can watch it run around and I didn't see it that way. But, it's those things that when you grow up, just like the cooking thing, when you grow up, you're kind of like, I see it from a different angle now. I see it from a different perspective. And that's just part of growing up, right? That's just maturing and that's just the way it is. So I want to hear from you. Tell me about something that you absolutely thought your parents were right about. Something that just was, that's the way it was because I said that that's what it is, and then you find out later in life, God, they were wrong. Send me an email, live, L-I-V-E, at jbonair.com, live at jbonair.com. Is there something that you took away that you're just like, I'm not going to do that? Maybe that's the way it was back in the day, but now now that I'm grown up and it's like that's not how I'm going to cook, or that's not how I'm going to do something. Send me an email. Again, live at jbonair.com. And we're out of here now already. I don't even have any. Okay. All right. I had one more thing to talk about, but we won't get to that. Maybe we'll do it another time. It was on... Okay. Well, there you go. Now they're saying, no, we have to go now. My name is Jeremy Bradley. This is The Scribble. Again, feel free to give me a shout. Always awesome hearing from you. That email address, once again, live. Live, Live, at jbonair.com. You can email info@jbonair.com. It is a real email address, but it's not going to come to me, and I won't see it. So, live at jbonair.com. I will talk to you next time on The Scribble. Bye-bye, everybody.
Want more Scribble? Check out thescribbleshow.com for past shows, celebrity interviews, cheapskate tips, and more. That's at thescribbleshow.com and on Twitter at The Scribble Show. The Scribble is a speak-free media presentation.
If you want some real heat